Hi, everyone. I'm Dean Sikes with You Matter, and I've just had the most amazing conversation with Kim. I hope you will tune in. I think it might very well have an impact on your life that could change your life forever. God bless you.
Welcome to the show. I'm so happy you're here. You are going to be so happy you're here. I am Kim Sorrelle. I'm an author. I'm a speaker. I get to do a lot of fun things in life. My favorite thing to do is meet incredible people. And today is no exception. I have the incredible Dean Sikes with me. You are going to be blown away by his story and by what he does today and who he helps. He's helped hundreds of thousands of people. It's amazing what he does, and you're going to want to hear it all. And so, Dean, welcome to the show.
Kim, thank you so very much. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it. And so, Dean, before we get into everything we're going to get into, I want people to really get to know you. And so, normally I would ask you to tell me about 8-year-old Dean, but I think 7-year-old Dean might be even more appropriate. So, tell me about 7-year-old Dean.
Yeah, seven. I lived here. You grew up in Chattanooga, Tennessee, in the southeastern region of the country. Grew up in a Christian home. Great parents, great family life. Went to Christian schools. Went to church every time the doors were open. At 7 years old, on a Saturday, I was out playing football with my best friend, Chris Frank, and he and I were just out there having the greatest time. We were in the Super Bowl in our minds, and I was the quarterback, he was the receiver, and we were a very strong team together. And at about 3 o'clock that afternoon, someone pulled into our driveway, and it was an associate pastor from the church where we went. And at 7 years old, he invited me into my home, and I had a conversation with my parents and this pastor. And I remember kneeling down, and I prayed a simple prayer, and I became a Christian. And I went outside after that, and I said to Chris, Chris, are you a Christian? I was so excited. And he said, no, what's that? And it shut me down. I just wasn't ready for that answer at 7 years old. I said, oh, we'll talk about it later. Let's, go long, and I'll throw the ball. And I didn't ask anybody about their faith or their lack of faith for a long time. And that began me on a journey leading up to when I was 15 years old. Kim, I think that every one of us have defining moments in our lives, time-stamped moments. And for me, mine was 7 years old, and the next one was at 15. And that was a really turning point in my life. And I had been at school, in my Christian school, with all of my Christian friends, and a Christian buddy of mine picked me up in his really just a massively fast sports car, and we went to his home, and he had this electronic gadget that I just caught my attention. And what I didn't see coming was that over the next little bit of time on that afternoon, I would become a statistic. I was sexually abused. And in those 60 seconds of that abuse, my life took a trajectory that I never saw coming. And went to church that night, went home, looked in my mirror, and I saw someone full of shame, pain, and brokenness. And I looked in that mirror and I made a vow to myself, I'll never tell anybody what happened to me today. And I shut down. I've spoken with just literally multiplied millions of people on what I get to do every day. And one of the messages I always share is if you and I don't deal with our emotions will deal with us. They don't just magically disappear. So I moved forward at 17. I lied all the time. From 17 to 21 years old, my drug of choice was lying. The greatest selling book of all times says in it, the second greatest commandment is to love your neighbor as yourself. Well, I didn't love me, so there was no way I could love you. You can't give what you don't have. You can't teach what you've not been taught. And so I lied. I just created these stories all the time because I thought there's no way people are going to like me. So let me just create a world they will like. And that didn't last too long. And next defining moment was 21. This is the moment. I was in real estate development. We had whatever society says makes you successful. I guess we had a little bit of it. And I was miserable. You can gain the whole world, and if it's not right with your soul, you're in trouble. I was the poster child for that one. I was full of arrogance, pride, but it was all driven from a place of brokenness. So at 21, I said this simple prayer. I said, hey, God, it's me. I don't think you're real. I feel stupid talking to the wind, but if by chance I'm wrong, prove it. 2 weeks come and go. There was zero faith attached to my prayer. Forgot I even prayed it. But 2 weeks later, I was sitting in my office, and I was dialing a phone, checking on a shopping center that we'd just built in West Virginia. And I heard someone say two words that would change me forever. The two words were call mom. I swung around in my chair because I heard someone say it. I saw no one, but the hair on the back of my head knew to call my mom, and I did. And when she answered the phone, I knew instantly something was really wrong. Her voice was slurred. She was disoriented. I was about to learn in that moment when God, who's so very real, spoke to me and said, call mom, and I did so. My mother was attempting suicide. She was dying. And I could hear the life leaving her. And I remember I ran out of my office, jumped in my car, drove up Interstate 75, and I said a very simple prayer. It was simple, like, help. I can't save my mom, but you can. Drove into my parents' neighborhood. From the outside in, their home looked fine. From the inside out, she was dying. I see so many people who from the outside in appear to have it all together, but from the inside out, they're in their own private wars. Get my mom to a hospital. And as we're driving, she says, Dean, I can't be dying. I said, you're not going to die, but you're going to choose to live. Live is not the most important word in that sentence. Chooses. Choices create circumstances. Got her to the hospital. A doctor worked for her for 45 minutes, came over to my dad and said a sentence I'll never forget. He said, Mr. Sikes, I have no medical reason to explain this to you. It's a, quote, miracle of God. Your wife is fine. You can go see her. I heard that doctor say, miracle of God. I looked straight up and went, you've got to be kidding me. You're real. And that began me on a journey that has brought me to you today.
Wow, wow, wow. Yeah, okay, there is so much there. There's so much there. Yeah, sexual abuse, holy cow.
Yep.
People that live with that, it's it's so difficult. You know, people who have never been through it might look at somebody else and go, "Well, get over it." Well,
Right.
you don't just get over it.
No.
It's such an invasion. It's so personal and so difficult to deal with emotionally, mentally, physically. It's
Yep.
difficult to deal with. And so I'm so sorry that that happened to you. That's horrible. And like you said, it changed your life. You know, who
It
knows
did.
what would have happened in those next several years had you not had that
Right.
experience. And there is a shame that's attached to it, which is shameful that there's a
It
shame
is.
attached to it because it wasn't your fault. It
You know,
wasn't your fault,
that
right?
was that was the thing that I had to come to terms with because, trauma is what happens to a person that should have never happened, but conversely, trauma is also that which did not happen that should have happened. I meet a lot of teenagers on the road who have trauma from not having parents involved in their lives.
Mhm.
So I moved forward through life and just never dealt with it and went into full-time ministry and, started my own and started speaking. And 22 years after I'd been sexually abused, married, three kids, my wife said, "Will you go to Home Depot?" And if you knew me, you would laugh out of your chair right now because I'm not a fix-it person, right? But I did go because I thought, well, yeah, I can go. Let's go find it. So I would go to Home Depot about 6:30 in the evening, walk down aisle 21, turn right, and walk right into the person who had abused me 22 years ago.
Mhm.
My life unraveled right there at Home Depot. And listen, I was on Christian television, reaching 250 million people a night with my story. I couldn't function. I drove home somehow. My wife said, "What's wrong?" I said, "Give me a few." And later that night, I said, I've never told anybody this. I've never had the guts to tell anybody this, but 22 years ago, sexually abused, ran into the person tonight. And I'll never forget, she looked at me, she said, everything makes sense now.
Mhm.
I didn't understand that at the time, Kim, but I was about to. She said, we've got to get you some help. I said, no, I'm good. She said, no, clearly you're not. And I said, no, I've got what I believe. I've got God. I've got the Bible. She says, Dean, if you had been diagnosed with a medical sickness, would you go to a doctor? Sure. No different. We're finding a great counselor for you. And I went, and I'll be real. I try to be as transparent as I can. When I went to that first counselor, I'll never forget the big brown door. And right before I opened the door to go in, on this side of me, I heard this evil saying, if you go in there, somebody's going to recognize you from television. On this side, I heard righteousness saying, he whom the Son sets free is free indeed. It was my choice. I walked in and said, hi, I'm Dean Sikes. I'm here for my appointment. I ended up getting with a different counselor. And that conversation that he and I had lasted 11 years.
Mhm.
And it changed me. And somewhere along that way, I tell you all that to say this, I was asked this question: will you forgive the person who abused you? My strong Christian self said absolutely, positively, without any hesitation or contradiction, no. And they said, why? I said, it's not fair. I didn't do anything wrong. And then they said this, game changer, was the cross fair? Why'd you have to go there? And so I took some time, but I did forgive. And I would love to tell you, and I'd love to tell your audience that when I forgave, I saw angels giving high fives, people shout. It was a glorious change for me. I felt nothing. But faith is not about feelings. Faith is about obedience. And so I I just kept saying it. I said, Lord, I just choose to forgive this person. And there was a day not long after I woke up one morning and I was totally, completely free. And
Mm.
here's the takeaway I share with students. When you forgive the person who hurt you the most and you truly do it from your heart, you will get free. And man, it is an absolute joy. That person who sexually abused me could walk into any place I'm speaking, sit on the front row, and it wouldn't faze me in the least
Wow.
at
Wow.
all. But
That's a
forgiveness is the key.
transformation.
Oh,
That's
massive,
huge.
massive.
That's what forgiveness can do.
That's what forgiveness does. Yes.
Wow. Wow. That's huge. Yeah. So kudos to you for taking your wife's advice. She sounds like a very, very wise woman and obviously loves you dearly and wanted you to go get help. And so good for her for
Yep.
making you do it. Good for you for doing it. And good for the person that you've had this 11-year conversation with that has transformed things for you
Yeah.
in that area of your life. It's amazing to me. We can be going about our lives in our careers, in our jobs, in our families, and whatever, and be normal, seem normal. Everything's not. This part of life is great, but you've got this part of life that just nags at you, that is just carrying on, that's on your shoulder and doesn't leave. You can't shower it off. You can't wipe it off. It just is there until you can let go of it.
Right. 100% correct. I totally agree with you. And that's the thing. So many. Here's what I've learned, in because I speak to a lot of adults on weekends, and I've seen it. Broken teenagers become broken adults. Healed teenagers become healed adults. And brokenness attracts brokenness, like health attracts health. And when two become one, they recreate whatever they are. And
Mm.
so if show me a teenager today who's really struggling, who doesn't really understand what their purpose is, why they're on this thing called Earth, what their journey's supposed to look like, and they're just kind of aimlessly wandering through life, that person will, until and unless they have this moment where they come to terms with life and make some modifications, they're going to be the adults out there that are going to change jobs 20 times. They're going to go through relationship after relationship, and they're not bad people. They've just not been healed.
Mm.
I would hate to think today where I would be had I not experienced healing. And there are areas that are still broken in me that I continue to work on, that I continue to go, oh God, you've got to help me because I can't fix this myself. But
Right.
recognition's half the battle.
Yeah. 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 So true. Recognition is half the battle for sure. For sure. You got to admit it, recognize it, see it to be able to do anything about it.
Yep.
And there are not many people that rescue their mom, that
Mm.
are put in that position where, first of all, thank you for listening to that voice and calling your mom. That is awesome.
Yep.
And holy cow, if that's not God, but
Yep.
show me something. Show
Right.
me another miracle of miracles. And so for you to do that and then go and save your mom and her to, by a miracle of God, to be okay, that had to take a toll.
It did because quite honestly, I had lived 4.5 years basically every time the phone ringing, thinking this is the call that says she's gone.
Mm.
It had been a really, really traumatic season for us. And when I got through that day, my dad looked at me and said, "Do you want to go see your mom?" I said, "No, sir, not right now." He goes, "I understand." I thought, "No, I don't think you do, because 3 hours ago I was minding my own business, and the creator of the universe, apparently, who's very real, speaks to me. I hear his audible voice telling me to call mom. I do so. Your wife, my mom, is trying to end her life. Now I've got a doctor with 4 years of college, 4 years of med school, 2 years of residency, and years of practicing say he didn't save her, but God did. No, Dad, I'm going for a walk." And Kim, I could take you to the spot in Park Ridge Hospital in Chattanooga, Tennessee. In fact, I went there just the other day. I could take you to the exact spot where I leaned against this wall, this long corridor, and I had this encounter. And it was as if the warmest oil-like substance hit the top of my head and went to the soles of my feet. I didn't hear any voice, but I knew I was in the presence of someone much greater than me. And I started having these thoughts of, I've called you to do something more than you're doing. Because I was in real estate development. I was going into politics. I mean, my next stop was going to be the state legislature. I was going to be in the U.S. Congress at 25 and run for governor at 36. I mean, that was the plan. We had polling data. We had the money in the bank. I mean, it was happening. But God had a different way. And I had to yield to that, and I had to surrender to that. And whether I've spoken in Russia or Australia or South Africa or England or wherever in the world that we've been able to go, one of the things I see the most is the absolute necessity to surrender, not my will, but his, and go, okay, you see this from a much higher perspective than I do, and trust the process. That's why I've written books. That's why we've done so many media things. It's because there are so many people out there who desperately need to know the truth. And the cool thing about the truth, it's always true. It never changes, you know?
Yeah, I know that. I've heard that about truth. The truth is true.
Yeah,
I've
it
heard
is.
that before. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and what a higher calling this is than being in politics.
Yeah, it wasn't it wasn't just my journey. I still look at it and go, well, glad I'm not there because it's not a world that I would want to be a part of these days. But where I do enjoy is maybe being able to share with those young people in schools and wherever we get to go that, your purpose, and I know this from very personal processing, your purpose is not yours to decide, it's yours to discover. And that
Mm,
discovery is the journey of a lifetime. When you
mm,
really clue into why you are here, what is your purpose? And if you weren't doing it, if you don't do it, we're all going to miss something terribly important because
mm.
every person matters. So I wrote the book. It's so simple. You matter.
Right, right. Yeah, so true. So suicide is
Mm,
so hard. It's just everything about it, nothing about it is easy. I mean, it's such a struggle. The people that think about it, it's such a battle in your mind because
yep.
we're born to live. But then if you don't feel like you're important, you don't feel like you belong here, or whatever circumstances in life, I actually got a phone call. So
Mm,
phone didn't go from me to my mom. The phone call went from my brother to me, letting me know that my mom had started her little Mustang convertible in the garage and
mm.
was no longer with us.
Oh, I'm so
And
sorry.
yeah, devastating. I can't even begin to tell you how absolutely horribly devastating it was. And certainly you got moments of that with your mom for sure. With my mom, it was shocking. Like there was no, she might do this someday. Like it was came out of the blue. It was such a shock. And but she wrote a letter, so she definitely meant to do it. And there's a stigma around it. Like for
Hmm.
a long time, this is years ago. I was in my 20s when this happened, and for a long time, and even that day, we said, "Well, what do we tell people?"
Yeah.
Right? Like
Yep.
accident, you can say there was an accident, a disease,
Right.
you can say, yeah, the disease. But what do we tell people? What do we tell people? Talk about shame. We were ashamed.
Yeah.
We
No, I
carried
get that.
shame, right? Like,
Yep.
what could I have done differently? What did I do wrong that my mom would do this? Why? Why? So many unanswered questions, so much that you want to know that takes time to discover. And but shame is certainly something that you bear. We lost family over it. My mom's
Hmm.
family, most of them didn't speak to us anymore because somehow we were to blame.
Right.
Because with shame comes blame as well.
Yep. Yep.
And so it's its own animal. It's its own way to lose somebody. It is the hardest way to lose somebody.
No
The
question.
hardest way. And so you dealt with that. You and your mom, hopefully after that moment, then things got better for her and she didn't attempt suicide again. Is that true?
Yeah, yeah. She went on and became a counselor and helped people overcome what she had overcome. And she passed away on March 13th, 2020. I was
Mm,
actually in the room with her. And one of the things that I've learned in all of this is that what you overcome in life, no matter who you are, what you overcome, will typically become your platform.
mhm,
And so for us, I recently sat with a family whose son, with no warning whatsoever, ended his life. And I sat around the table and I did a lot of listening. And that I knew them from years and years ago, and they reached out to me, and they know what we get to do in life. And I remember just sitting there listening, especially to the father. The mother was very spiritual, had her Bible out, was giving me scripture after scripture of things that she was seeing about all this. But I saw two or three of his brothers and sisters, and just the lingering question of not only why, but now what. And I saw the dad, who's this massive man, just go from being kind, thanks for coming, to just angry. Like, and I looked at him. I said, I want you to know something. It's okay to be angry. It really is. And he went from anger to tears and going, if I had just known, if there had been any sign. And that's always what I hear. If someone, I'm upset with so many parents, and I'm upset with so many teenagers who've attempted, and they tell me the same stories basically. And in all of this, I see that there is hope, because hope in my view gives faith something to hang on to. You know, faith isn't faith until it produces. It's hope giving you faith to move forward. And so I see a lot of young people who've gone through horrific things, horrific circumstances, but I see them, I'm coming out on the other side of it. And they actually have this thing called joy, not happiness. Happiness changes with, it's an emotion. It changes with the weather. Joy is something much, much deeper. For those who read their Bibles and believe the word like I do, joy is a fruit of the spirit. I mean, it's something that is long lasting. So, when you go through something like you went through, which I just hearing that, I just can't even begin to imagine what that phone call was like for you. And I hate that you had to experience that. But I know that on the other side of that, we keep going. For those unanswered questions that people have and that wondering what's next, you just keep going. You wake up the next day and you somehow you find that inner strength to go, okay, let's get back in the game.
Yeah, right. Maybe it wasn't the next day.
Yeah.
But eventually you get to that point. But you said your pain becomes your platform. That's so true. Like, I get phone calls from people who lose somebody through suicide and need to talk to somebody who's been through the experience, because nobody can relate to you like someone who's actually been through it. We can sympathize, we can empathize, we can whatever, but for people to talk to people who have actually been through it, it's a whole different conversation. And so, yeah, I wish my mom were around. I wish it never would have happened, but I'm at the same time happy that something good can come out of it. And so that's what you hope for. If you're going to go through something painful, man, something good ought to come out of it on the other end, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So obviously something good came out of your mom's experience. Many things good. Your mom's a counselor, helping people. You've helped so many people, and suicide's for real. And I think we don't think about it enough. We don't look for it enough. I want to hear more about what you have to say. I want to hear about statistics, because I think the statistics are so much higher than people realize. The kids.
Well, I'll give you one right now that surprises most people. Every day in America, 5,600 people attempt suicide. Pre-COVID, it was 5,240. So let me give you a visual. In an arena that seats 12,000 people, envision 12,000 empty seats. And over the course of 60 hours, 2.5 days, every one of those seats would have someone sitting in it who, in the last 60 hours, had attempted suicide. That's every day. I mean, it is epidemic on steroids. And the crazy thing is, I've done over 4,300 events as a speaker. So, and probably, I don't know, 4,000 of those have been schools. And what's amazing is how many people in schools don't recognize, because I asked the question. I mean, I'm just bold enough to ask it. And I think that boldness, plus I'm not reading a speech, I'm just talking with students, I'm not talking to them. I asked them 3 questions when I finish every assembly. Is there someone you need to forgive? Do you feel like you've been rejected? Because on the other side of rejection is acceptance. My mom called me 6 months before she died and said, when you were 4.5 years old, I emotionally abandoned you. You and I do not have a relationship. You know what? I know it. Stop acting like we do. She wasn't being mean. She had nothing to give to me. And so I had to deal with that. And so I asked about, do you feel like you've been rejected? And the third question is suicide a real option? And the questions are just so bare honest. Hands go all up every time. Hundreds and hundreds will respond. And then you've got teachers looking at it going, oh my gosh, we got 72 kids in the school who want to end their life. What are we going to do? And so that gives birth to a whole other set of processes that we help a little bit with follow-up. But my point is, until people stop and care enough and long enough to ask questions, we just assume everything's fine. When in reality, it's anything but fine.
So true, so true. And probably I don't know if school size has anything to do with it, but I would imagine it's easier for kids to get lost in a bigger school
Yeah.
and not seen.
Yeah.
And which is a huge deal to be seen, right?
Oh, it's critically important. I mean, I remember for me the most unimaginable, painful 25 minutes of my days, Monday through Friday, every week in school was lunch. I would walk into that large cafeteria, and it wasn't large. It was just big enough for everybody. And I would pray, just let me find a seat where I can blend in because I was bullied. But yet I was also crazy popular. I was the editor of the newspaper. I was the president of the pep club, stage managed all the production. I was heavily involved, but I was still bullied. And the quiet pain that I lived with just kept getting compounded, one thing after another. I mean, when you get through this day, then here's something else the next day. And I tell this on stage, and so students are they so resonate with this because most of them are either being bullied or a handful of them are actually bullying, and they see the effect of it. So I look at life from the perspective of do you care enough to take time to simply listen? Because what you said, they've got to be seen, they've got to be heard. And if they don't feel like they matter, and they don't feel like they matter, they go down this trail that ends in either suicide or an attempted suicide. Social media is not helping the process at all. I believe everything was created by God and for God. I believe the enemy really takes it and twists it. So, you know, for us, we use social media every day. In the last 24 months, we've had 151 million views of our videos on social. We're thankful for that. But I also look at it, I count our views, not our likes. And I tell students this, if you're still counting your likes, you have no idea how much you're truly loved because those likes change. I can say one thing on social that does not meet the approval of the general public. That video could go viral and I might lose 100,000 followers like that. Well, as I often say, look deep into my blue eyes and realize I just don't care. Truth is always truth. So that's what I like to share. It's just truth. But how many kids do we know out there that are trying to change their appearance, change their friend group, change what they say and believe, all in an effort to get a little check mark or somebody say, I retweeted this or I like this or I followed you here. I have, as I'm sure you do, you've got probably a gazillion friends on Facebook or whatever. Those aren't my friends. I don't know them. They're people who are kind enough to watch what we do, but they're not friends. The person who lived and had the most impact on the planet, as far as I'm concerned, was Jesus. He ministered to the masses, discipled 12, he got close to 3. There might be a principle there.
Yeah, well, sort of a sidebar. I heard recently a statistic that men in the United States on average have 0.7 friends.
But does not surprise me at all. You know
Yeah.
why? Because we don't like intimacy. We don't want to let the guard down to go, hey, I'm suffering here. I do a quick example. I have a friend who has a medical practice, and he was going through kind of a season where the patients just weren't there, and there were reasons. It wasn't anything he had done. It was just basically just a plan of the enemy. And I suggested him. I said, how about you and this other person and I? Why don't we get together? Let's just pray. And we did. And I saw him the other day, and his practice has exploded. I mean, it's just crazy what God's doing. But sitting there that day with my 2 friends, when we finished, I said, I wonder how many people, men, are where we are, who act like everything's great, there are no issues.
Mhm.
I wonder how many would love to just sit in a circle and just talk and let their guard come down. And my 2 buddies were like, guarantee you, it would astound us how many people would join that group. And I think there's a principle there about, if we're so prideful and so full of ourselves that we can't go, I'm struggling, then I think we've missed in totality why we're here.
Right, right. And it's kind of saying, you're really not my friend.
Yeah.
If you can't be honest with people, if you don't have someone in your life that you can pour your heart out to, and also will tell you if you're messing up, that those are the most important people in your life. Like
Oh,
everybody needs one or more of those.
I think you have to have accountability in your life. One of the things I tell principals when I walk into their schools is, tell me my boundaries. I won't get out of that because I said, you're the authority here. And my belief is I can't have any authority in life unless I'm under authority. And so when I walk into that room, I'm like, tell me my sandbox and I'll play in that and I won't get out. And that's why at 4,000 schools, there's not one that I couldn't go back into because I don't ever get outside of those boundaries. I have too much respect for them. And we're not there to bring confusion or start something. We're there to help. And Lord knows they need help. They tell me afterwards, they're like, we had no idea. We just didn't know because they're so busy trying to process education.
Right, right, right. I mean, there's paperwork beyond the classroom, and there's planning, and there's however many students you have. And I would think it would be very difficult for a teacher, for a principal, for a school to really get to know every kid in there and
Yep.
understand and be a sanctuary for them. Like that's another thing I think is so important for kids. If they have a favorite teacher, that the teacher, you can go into their classroom anytime you want and they'll talk to you. What a blessing that is. What a gift that is.
Oh, I'm 59 years old. I don't know how old you are in the third grade, but in the third grade, my teacher was Charlotte Justice. And she impacted me in such a way. And I haven't seen her in probably 45, 50 years. But I don't know, 20, 25 years ago, I found her number and I called her and I said, I just want to thank you because you really impacted me when I was a small kid. And today I get to do this. And I trace a lot of this back to you and the things that you taught me. And some of the things that just being available, kind of a mom figure, if you will. And so that's why I have a great respect for teachers because they are influencing on a daily basis a generation of young people who will become tomorrow's leaders or worse.
Either way, one way.
Either way.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so you go to schools and you've written books. You've got this book. I love the "You Matter." It's just the phrase of that, "You matter." I mean, period, right? You matter. So many kids don't understand that they do matter. And so what do you say to kids, or what do you say to people that shows them that they do matter?
Well, here's the question I get a lot, Kim, is that when I get through speaking, now I always close with the same, you were created on purpose, with purpose, and for purpose, and because you're breathing, you matter. That's how I close. And they come up to me afterwards, they go, you don't know me. No. You don't know what I did last night. No, and I don't want to know what you did last night. You don't know my family history. No. I said, let me just help you. I don't know anything about you. But yet you have the audacity to look at onto this audience and say, you matter. How can you do that? What do you base that on? And then my smile just gets a little wider. And I go, so happy you asked that question. I said, there's a verse in the Bible. It's got 16 words in it. And it's why you matter. And it's Job 33, verse 4. And it says this, the Spirit of God made you, and the breath of the Almighty gave you life. I said, you matter for one reason. You're breathing. That's it. That's the only reason you matter. It's not your GPA. It's not how much money your parents have. It's not how athletically inclined you are, how theatrically great you are, which kind of music you can create. You matter for only one reason, and that is you're breathing. Now let's figure out what you're going to do with this thing called life. And it becomes contagious, and they catch it. The most enjoyable time I have as a speaker is when I see, especially teenagers, catch the revelation of not just that they do matter, but why they matter. I would bet a lot that with what you do, with what I do, with maybe what your audience does, what I do does not get me out of bed most mornings. Why I do it catapults me out of bed every single morning at a crazy early hour, because the why is what matters. Mm-hmm. So sharing that with students, that this is my belief. People go, it's such a simple message. It's got to be more. Well, no, but thanks for recognizing the simplicity. It is simple by design. And you said something a minute ago. I don't know if you said, you matter, period. On the cover of my book, after the R in matter, there is a period, and it's there by design. And I told the designer, I said, I want the period there for one reason. It's you matter, period. Not what you've done, no matter how bad. We're on an app in prisons, and we get letters every week from people who've done pretty heavy things, and they watch it. And I always talk about you matter, and it's amazing to me to see the response. Just a couple of days ago, I flew down to an event in a prison. Someone had seen our videos on the app, and they reached out to us. And for the first time, I've spoken in a lot of prisons through the years, but I spoke on death row where people are going to die. And it was one of the most amazing moments to be there with these men who know they're going to die. And they looked at me and they said, "Thank you for telling me that I matter still." I said, "Oh man, you do matter. You do. What you did, whatever it was you did, I can't change that. I have no power over the past and no power for the future. We've been given this gift called today. And my assignment today is to come here and tell you, and I've got grown men crying, because it's what's contained in those two words. There's so much there.
Oh my gosh, there is so much there. And everybody needs to know that they do,
Yeah.
that they truly matter. And I think that you're probably run into kids who, that's one of the reasons that they want to end their life, is they feel useless. They feel like they don't matter. They feel like nobody even knows they exist. So why bother to exist?
Yep.
And yeah.
I've seen, give you a couple of quick examples. I've seen students at that end of the spectrum of looking at it like my life doesn't matter at all. I was recently in Pennsylvania. A young lady walked up to me afterwards, and it was extremely obvious very quickly she had had a horrific life. And she said, "I'm 17 years old, and every 6 months I go before a judge, and I'm told there's not a family that wants me, and they send me back to this home." She said, "I have been in 17 homes in 17 years." And she had tried to end her life. Now, on the other side of that equation, I'm in a school in Kentucky. A young man walks down this long, I was in a big theater. He walks down the aisleways, had 7 guys behind him. I said, "Man, I don't know who you are, but you are a leader." He goes, "How do you know that?" I said, "It's the same way I always know I see a leader. Look over your shoulder. Anybody following?" He said, "Yeah, I'm the quarterback of the football team." I said, "Yep." Then he says to these guys, "Hey, I need to speak to the speaker. I'll catch you at lunch." And 7 guys just turned around and walked away. I went, "Dude, tell me your story." He goes, "Well, first of all, let me just tell you this. You know those 3 questions you asked? Do I need to forgive? Do I feel rejected? Is suicide an option?" I said, "Yes." And suddenly this quarterback gets these big crocodile tears. And he goes, "I raised my hand for all 3. I said, "Okay, time out. Let's unpack." 3 years, he says, "I've got a 3.8 GPA. I've got a great looking girlfriend here. We go to church together. We're involved in our youth group. I am the quarterback of the football team. We're playing for the state championship this Friday night. We're going to win. Wonderful home life." I said, "Wait a minute. Forgiveness, I get. Rejection, I'm not sure. But suicide? 3.8 GPA." I went through the whole list. And he goes, "Today, Dean, at 3:15, which was 241 minutes when he and I were talking." He said, "Today at 3:15, I was going to the 50-yard line." And he pulled out of his pocket a 12-gauge shotgun shell. And he said, "I was going to end my life today." He said, "But you told me that I matter. Can I give this to you?" And I carry it with me wherever I go. I said, "Why did you want to end your life?" And I'll never forget this young man. He said, "Dean, you cannot imagine my life and the pressure to perform that I live with every day, trying to live up to a standard." How many adults are listening or watching right now who are constantly trying to measure up, trying to be successful, whatever that means? And for those who've attained great wealth, they're trying to now have significance, whatever that means. What would happen if people just took a deep breath, realized, you know what, my life's okay. I'm going to make it. I'm going to do something for others. And they actually began to get engaged with whatever it was. Do you know how many young people out there on the planet today who do not have fathers in their lives? They don't have mentors in their lives. They don't have someone saying to them, "I believe in you." I mean, it's to me, it's such a, and I guess because I'm passionate about it because it's what I do every day, but I see such a need. Show me a 60-something-year-old or a 40-something-year-old lady who's crazy successful in business, got all the money she'll ever need or want to have. What would happen if you took 12 young girls, put them in a room and started pouring into them once a week, teaching them what you wish you had known when you were their age? I mean, I think there's a whole process out there for us to really put a hand back towards that generation and bring them to where we are as we go together to where we're heading. It's just, sadly, so many people are just so self-consumed that they don't necessarily believe that they need to do anything like that. And I would strongly disagree.
Yeah, well, I disagree too. I think that to whom much is given, much is
Yeah, required.
right? And so, absolutely, there is so much about serving other people that comes back to you. Like I remember, Dean, the first time I went to the Dominican Republic on a mission trip, I thought, I'm going to serve. I'm going to just work hard and serve. What I received was so much greater than I could ever give. And it's how God works. You just can't outgive him. It,
No.
it just happens that way. And so when you go and are that woman who is sitting with those 12-year-olds and talking to them about life things and answering their questions and letting them know that they matter, you're going to get so much more out of it
Oh,
than you can ever put into it. And those kids need you. So there are so many opportunities. I think sometimes people don't know where to look for opportunities to help or to serve, but there are so many out there. There's Google as your friend. Just look it
yep,
up. I
yep.
guarantee there's things in your area, places in your area that you can go volunteer. And it does something for you. It does
It
great
does.
things for you as well.
And I would encourage people, families especially, to start at home.
Mm.
Start at home. I have so many parents say to me, "Well, I'm just trying to be my kids' friend." Stop. You're not supposed to be, you're never supposed to be their best friend in those years. You're supposed to be their parent. There's a huge difference. And they go, "Well, I don't know what to say to my kid." Well, that's concerning, but okay. Um, Start with questions. Just start. How was your day? Fine. Well, what made it fine? My wife started something when our kids were young, and to this day, we'll still on occasion do it pretty consistently when they come through home. And that is, what was your high today? What was your low today? What made it such? What was great about today? What was low about today? And I've learned from me, especially as a father, um, and to the men who are watching, be quick to call your own fouls. I've messed up as a dad. I messed up as a husband. I would say things that were too harsh or not kind, or I was in a hurry, or you want to get on the plane to go speak somewhere. And, my family has never known me not, I was doing this before I ever got married. So they've never known me not to do this. And so when I'm home more than 3 or 4 days at a time, they're like, shouldn't you be speaking somewhere? And so it's kind
Are we
of
going to
funny.
eat tomorrow?
Yeah.
What's going on?
So but it's being in those places where you're present with where you are and who you're with. I knew when our son was really, I don't know, he was probably 14 or 15. I knew we were in trouble as a family when I was downstairs in our family room. He was upstairs in his bedroom, and he and I were texting each other.
Mm.
I knew then, okay, this is ridiculous. Stop. And because it's the internet was created to connect people, but it's become the most isolating tool there is.
Mm.
And so I think families coming back to, I'll tell you a quick little story. As a speaker, you'll appreciate this, I think. So Timmy's a 7-year-old little boy, right? And his dad teaches him how to throw a curveball. So it's during the summer months, and one day Timmy goes out. He practices all day. His mom and dad are both at work. They get home for dinner, and they're in the kitchen cooking. And Timmy comes running in. He goes, "Dad, I've done it. I've conquered the curveball. I know how to do it." His dad says, "Okay, well, after dinner, we'll go out and you can show me." He goes, "Okay, Dad." They keep cooking. They have their dinner. His dad brings home a stack of papers, this high, and Timmy goes, "Dad, it's getting dark. We got to go outside." He goes, "Dad, okay, Timmy, I'll get there. I got to finish this work." Finally, Timmy goes, "Don't worry about it." And his dad goes, "You know what? Oh, wait a minute." And he takes it. He has a newspaper, and he cuts up a map of the world. He says, "Timmy, put the map of the world together. And when you do, come get me and we'll go throw the ball." He looks at his wife. They smile at each other like, "This ain't going to happen tonight." It went in 5, 6 minutes. Here comes Timmy, blonde hair, blue eyed little boy, running across the room. "Dad, I did it." "You did what?" I put the map of the world together." "Timmy, Dad, I did it. Let's go." He goes, "Let me see." He goes over, and to his astonishment, the map of the world is back together. He says, "Timmy, how did you know where Nairobi was to Nebraska or South Australia to South Alabama? How did you know?" And Timmy looks up at him with this very gracious smile and goes, "Oh, it was so simple, Dad. On the back of the map of the world was a picture of a family. And when I put the family back together, the world was okay too."
That's so good.
And that's kind of the storyline because so many teenagers come from homes that are either broken or are fragmented in such a way that they don't know where they belong and nobody's talking. So they come to school, they dive into their devices, and they do whatever they do, and they go home and they hit repeat and they do it again over and over and over.
Hmm. Yeah, man, so true, so true. Yeah, and it's tough
No.
because it's their friends are doing it if they have friends, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
so it's just kind of become the standard
It
to
has.
be on your device, and you go out for dinner and the whole family, they're all on their devices and not even talking.
No.
And it's sad. We need to talk to each other
Oh,
again, for
I was at
sure.
a restaurant just 3 or 4 nights ago, and I looked over, and I seemed to be a husband and wife, and they were less than 4 feet apart, and both looking down at their phones the entire time I sat there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, when you were dating her, I guarantee you weren't on your phone looking down the whole time. Somewhere
Mm-hmm.
along the way, you lost the chase, and your phone and going through social media feeds was more important than the person sitting across. Because one day that person's not going to be sitting there.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right.
Just reality.
Yep. Yep. So, and then you live with regret. And
Yep.
who wants to live with regret? Time passes by with or without us.
That's right.
You
It
might
does.
as well go along for the ride and be present and be there.
That's right.
Yeah. So tell me, what do you say to parents who are worried about their son, their daughter? Uh, maybe they're just kind of worried about them. Like, do they fit in? Are they feeling good about their lives? Are they thinking about ending their life? What do you say to
One
them?
of the things that I say to parents is the best-selling book of all time says this in the book of Proverbs: open communication permits progress. So learn how to open those lines of communication up. Talk with them. Again, ask questions if you don't know. Just start with questions, because it's that old adage: people don't care how much you care until they know how much you actually do care. Right? They don't know how much they're not interested in what you know, what you don't know. It's some of the most amazing conversations I've had with our kids. It's just sitting down going, I had one today with my daughter. She's going through something, she and her husband, and going through a little situation in their home with a construction project. And I could hear it in her. I could just hear the stress. And I was like, sweetheart, I think we can handle this one. I think I know how to fix this one. She says, well, I'm not asking you to fix it. I said, I know. You're not asking me to fix anything. But as your dad, I kind of know you pretty well. I could hear, she goes, well, and when I heard the well, I went, we
Oh,
win. Okay. Because what she was saying there was, oh, okay, Dad, I'll let you kind of get involved here a little bit. And I think the reality for us is, for all of us, is we all go through things, but nothing, I mean, there's always a beginning, a middle, and an end to whatever we're going through. And if we can keep our eyes on the prize and keep moving forward, it's kind of like, there was a guy named Paul a long time ago in the Bible. He was shipwrecked on this island, and he was a pretty strong leader. And he was, I know that because it paints a picture of where he shipwrecked on this island. It was raining, it was cold, there were all the entire island, the people were out, they were building this fire. And this guy named Paul was actually involved, and he was grabbing wood, he was helping to build the fire. And as he was grabbing the wood, a viper or a snake grabbed his arm and clamped down on it. And everyone there watched thinking he's just going to die. But instead, he did one thing. He shook it off. And from there, you have to read the rest of the story to know what happened. But I learned a great lesson there. Sometimes you just got to shake it off. You just got to keep going. You just got to go, okay, that wasn't any fun at all. And we all go through those moments when it's not fun, when life's challenging. But if you'll know how to shake it off, keep your focus on what it needs to be focused on, major on the major, minor on the minor, and keep pursuing the prize. Keep going after the thing that you're called to do, because every single person watching or listening today is called to do something.
mm,
I mean, I'm not called to reach everybody. I'm called to reach somebody.
right,
You
right,
know, I,
right.
I, that's why, as much as I love golf, I am fully convinced in my own mind there will be the most unimaginable, fantastic golf courses in heaven I'm going to play. Right? I have no proof of that. It's just a desire of mine. I would love to be on Sunday mornings. I would love to be speaking at PGA chapel services all over every time they have one. That's not where I'm called to be. I could go speak in corporate America. But when I was young, they said there was a guy named Zig Ziglar who was this motivator. They said, you're the next, you're a young Zig Ziglar. And Zig and I met each other. And I was like, no, this is a dream come true for me. I wasn't a young Zig Ziglar. I was a young Dean Sikes.
Mhm.
And that's what I try to get teenagers to understand. Don't try to be somebody else. We need you. Be you. Don't
Yeah. Oh my
don't
gosh.
go.
So true. I think that's what it comes down to. Like people, purpose is this buzzword almost, right? Like
Hmm.
I got to discover my purpose. I got to go to this thing to discover my purpose. I got to read this book to discover my purpose. I got to pray to discover my purpose. You've got to do something to discover your purpose. Well, I believe your purpose is to be exactly who God created you to be. fully,
Absolutely.
completely you. Don't try to be somebody else. Don't try to duck who you are, but embrace who you are and be
Absolutely.
totally you. That it's that simple.
It
That's
is.
your purpose.
And, that's what I tell teenagers. You're the only you that has ever existed.
Mhm.
There will never be another you. So the fact that you're here because God put his breath in you, he's jump started your life with his breath. You've got a purpose that's not yours, again, to decide, it's yours to discover. You've got this thing called life to live. You've got this much time, whatever that amount is for you. What are you doing that's going to prove at some point that you actually existed? And that doesn't mean, and this is maybe important to just jump on for a second. You you parenthetically don't have to have a microphone in front of you or cameras on you to be used to do what you're called to do. If that's part of your calling, great. But unless it's your calling, I promise you, you don't want it because that comes with a whole lot of other stuff that most people never see. That's not enjoyable. But what if you were just, what if you actually took the time, let's say you're a coach and you mentored these kids through these formidable ages. I mean, I've already told you today, at 59, I still remember my third grade teacher vividly. I remember every day after lunch turning the lights off and she would read Little House on the Prairie books to us. I mean, that's where I fell in love with the Waltons on television. It was like, I mean, these are things that I'll never ever forget. People think, Dean, you were just so bizarre and weird. Well, I might be, but it's just, it's. I try my best to be the true, authentic version of me. I don't want to be anybody else because for so long I wasn't because of the abuse. I
Mhm.
always tried to mask who I really was, thinking I would create a person that you really would love to be with and hang out with. And I was dating all these great-looking older girls, and I couldn't figure out why do all these older girls. Then I thought, who cares? I'm having fun, and sin is fun until the cycle of death catches up with you. But I didn't understand it way back then that I was I was attracted to people who had dealt with what I had dealt with. They were attracted to me because those two worlds collided. And so, oh, here's somebody who understands.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're a kid, if you're talking to a kid, you're one on one and they just are lost and they've been through some stuff, whatever it is, everybody goes through stuff. Everybody goes through stuff. And so whatever stuff it is that they've gone through, they're just ready to throw in the towel. Uh, and things aren't good at home. They don't have anybody to talk to there, maybe
yep.
not close with a teacher. They might feel friendless. What do you say to a kid like that?
You know, I base my life on the Bible. I do my best to, and not everyone will agree with that, and that's okay too. I'm not here to try to convince anybody to believe what I believe because if I could talk you into something, somebody a whole lot better than me could talk you out of it. So to answer your question, when I have students come up to me afterwards, my question to them is this. I said, in my belief, there's a real God, there's a real enemy. God loves you, the devil hates you. God's good, the devil's bad. That settled that. I said, here's the question I would like you to think about. What does that enemy, that devil, know about your life, that in your purpose, your potential, that he's so petrified you're going to get there, that he's thrown everything, including the kitchen sink at you, whether it's family relationships, whether it's whatever, whatever, whatever. And they go, well, I've never thought about that. I'm like, well, let's think about that. And it's the aha moment. They're like, you mean my life really does matter? Oh, yeah, it really does matter. Because when you truly understand the value of your life, you'll understand what steps to take next. For us, one of the things that we do is I wrote another book called Hope 365. It's a daily devotional. It's very simple. If you happen to like how I speak, you'll love how I write. And it's a free download on our website. And so I have no idea how many books we've given to students. We'll tell them, go to our website. They hit a QR code on a card we give them, and they can go straight to our website and download that book at no charge. And so now you've got every day of the year, there's a inspirational devotional just for you. You read it when you want to. It takes you 2 minutes to read it. And it's just part of our discipleship side. We've got a follow-up side, a discipleship side, and of course a road side. And so I try to get students to find, is there someone in your life that you really trust? Well, yeah, okay. Would you be willing to go talk with that person? Just tell them about our conversation today. In schools, if, for example, I never speak to students one-on-one by myself. just from an accountability standpoint. If it's a guy, I'll have a coach or a teacher there with me who's a guy. If it's a young lady, I'll always have the principal or just another lady who's on staff there, and they're within earshot of what I'm saying, what's being said. And then I always, especially with kids who are dealing with suicidal thoughts, I'll go, now you had enough guts to come talk to me, and I understand why I'm leaving. You're never going to see me again. I'm never going to see you again. I'm safe. You know that. Yes, that's why I came to talk to you. Good. Now then, do you trust me? Yes, I do. Good. We're going to get you some help. No, 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 I'm going to get in trouble. No, you're not going to get in trouble. And it's fear-based. They're so scared that someone's going to find out. But yet again, recognition's half the battle. When what you expose from the standpoint of, oh, it's not as bad as maybe I thought it was. And I was speaking the other day somewhere, and I was speaking to a football team after I was doing all these assemblies, and the coach had asked me to speak to his team, and I did. And when it was over, all the players left except one and another coach. And he said, "Can I just talk to you for a minute?" I said, "Yeah, I'd love to talk to you." He goes, "You're going to think I'm stupid." I go, "No, I want it all." And he starts crying. Big old football player. I go, "What's going on, buddy?" He goes, "My dog just died, and he was my best friend." And I said, "Man, have I got a story for you." And tears fill my eyes. I'm like, I've always had German Shepherds, and I love Shepherds. I said, they're very protective, and I travel a lot, blah, blah, blah. I have them there for that reason. I said, but very recently, a couple of weeks ago, at this point, I said, we had to put one of our Shepherds down, totally unexpected. She got really sick really fast. He says, you understand? I said, well, I don't understand necessarily your pain, but I know what mine was like because I love that dog so much. He said, yeah. And we were able to talk something as seemingly almost insignificant as a pet in the big scope of life was what God used to connect his kid and me together. And he saw it was safe to say, I'm all upset because my dog died. And I thought, that took a lot of courage.
Mm-hmm.
And when it was over, tears were gone. He was smiling, and he ran out to the football field to go practice. And I walked away going, I never cease to be amazed at what happens in these things.
Mm-hmm.
I spoke at a very large university, Christian university, 7,000 students were there, and I gave an invitation. 1,000 students came forward. I went backstage to the green room, and maybe you can explain this to me, Kim, but the green rooms are never green. I don't get it, but they're just never green.
Never,
never. Back in the green room, and I call my wife, and I go, hey, 1,000 students just responded, and this is what happened. And she goes, that's great. I'm really happy that happened today. She says, can I tell you something? I said, sure. She goes, I don't want you to ever forget this for as long as you live. I said, okay, what? She goes, there was a day that God spoke through a donkey. I said, and? She goes, if you'll stay humble, I think he might use you a little bit. And I thought, okay, there's my humbleizer right there. God spoke through a donkey, and so I guess I'm in the family of a donkey is what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
Those moments are what kind of keep us going. Those moments of just laughter, because when you go through a lot of, I would imagine a lot of your listeners go through a lot of stuff. You can't put too high of a value on laughter.
Mm.
It does good like medicine.
It is. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And if you don't know what to laugh about, there's plenty of really great comedians out there that just turn one on and just laugh. It's so healing. It is so healing.
It is.
So, yeah, I agree. Everyone should laugh every day.
Absolutely.
That's what I think. And actually, I have grandchildren, a lot of them, 11 of them, and some of them are in college, and then there's the little ones, whatever. And when they're little, they thought I was really funny. And then they got to an age where I wasn't funny anymore. So I had to come up with new material. I don't know, but yeah.
That's funny.
Somehow I got unfunny. But yeah, to have somebody funny in your life that will make you laugh together. Laughing together is
so important.
Yeah, so important. Man, Dean, I am so thankful that you do what you do, that you touch so many lives that I don't even know. You probably don't know how many suicides you've prevented, how many kids you've helped, even who weren't thinking about suicide, but you've helped them in other ways so that they don't even get to the point of thinking about suicide. I mean, hundreds of thousands or more. Like there's a lot. I think of that song, that song that was out years ago. We're almost the same age, so you probably remember it, but thank you for giving to the Lord.
Yep. Yeah, great
right? I'm
song.
a life that was changed.
Yep.
And, you're going to be that guy walking down the streets of heaven, and people are going to be coming up to you going, Dean, thank you for giving to the Lord.
Well, you know, Kim, I haven't had a job since I was 26 years old. I get to do this. And, my mandate from God when I began was never charge anybody anything. So we never charge. God always supplies. And for me, it's the opportunity to get to just to go, uh, uh, air- this fall as we're out on the road. We're in so many schools, and every single day I look at those audiences and I'm like, I'm just grateful because for whatever reason I get to go do this, and I get to meet a lot of great, wonderful people who are doing spectacular things with their lives. And I think gratitude is one of the most important things any of us can ever exhibit in our lives, because gratitude is, I believe, is what draws God into our lives, a thankful heart. And so I really try to just, no matter what's going on, every single day to just find something to be thankful for.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. That is some strong advice right there. I think the other thing that gratitude does for you is it lets you see that life isn't as bad as you think it is.
Absolutely. Yep.
Right?
Absolutely. It's a lot of people out there who are going through heavy, heavy, heavy things. But it's when we take the time to maybe do a more introspective inventory of our lives to go, oh, wait a minute, over here. We have a little 1.5 year old, well, about 17-month-old granddaughter. And this kid has stolen my heart and will not give it back. I mean, I find myself rolling on the floor, making crazy noises, and she's just laughing. And
Mhm.
her name is Brooklyn, and Brooklyn is one of those kids. Just her laughter she's just contagious. And I've noticed that my family sits around and look at me going, "Okay, where's Dad and when's he coming home? Because who's this?" Because I'm doing things now that I never did with our own kids, and I'm learning that as a grandparent, you become the version of yourself that you wish you had been for your kids.
Mhm.
For me at least. And so I'm learning a lot again about just childlike faith and fun and the value of just investing quality time. I'd rather have 15 minutes of quality time than 2 hours of nothing, watching a television show or something. And so I think all of us are on this journey, and we have this opportunity to embrace life and live it to its fullest. And when it's tough, we just kind of buckle down. And I go back to the schools we get to go into. We're there for one reason: tell a kid they matter.
That's so good. That is so good. And I think it's really important. Look, one of my favorite verses in the Bible is it, and it came to pass,
Yeah,
because everything does.
that's so good.
The highest of the highs, the lowest of the lows,
Yep,
they will pass.
yep,
So those low moments when you think you're in the gutter forever, you're not.
right.
It will pass. Things will change. And hope is real. And
Oh, it is
yeah.
so real, and I call it the intangible asset of hope. It's you can't see it, but you can feel it, and it it does what nothing else can do. It gives you that potential to just keep moving. And you've got hope that, yeah, what you're believing for, what you're trusting for, what you're working towards is going to happen. And, I love to watch people when they get it, when they really go, oh, okay, I can keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Right. So good. Ah, this has been great. Thank you. Thank you again for what you do. How can people reach out to you? How can they
Yeah.
find you? Buy your
Uh,
book?
the book can be found on Amazon. It's just You Matter, Finding Hope and Meaning in Everyday Life. If they search my name, it'll probably pop up. The easiest way you can do it is You Matter Book, YOUMatterBook.us. That'll take you right to the book, where we are, people can purchase it there, but we're also giving 1 million copies to students at no charge. So there's a major sponsorship deal there. And then youmatter.us is our website. So You Matter Book, youmatter.us, or on Amazon. That's just the easiest way people reach out to us for scheduling. That's youmatter.us, and our scheduling office will happily talk with whomever, and we'll see what we can work out together.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And do it and buy the book, because like Dean said, he doesn't charge. So the way his family is going to eat is things like buy the book, go to his website, contribute, help out, realize the importance of this. What you do I'm speaking to my audience. What you do matters. Who you are matters. You matter. And I can tell you that if you give something to Dean, and this is totally unsolicited by him, but you buy his book, buy a copy for everyone you know, uh, you're going to change lives through Dean. You get to be part of what Dean is doing. So do it. Go to his website, buy the book, You Matter, and let people in your life know that they matter. Make
Yeah.
sure that everyone that you touch knows that they matter because you give them your time and you give them your love and you show them that they're seen. So thank you again, Dean. Thanks for being here. So good,
Yeah.
so much. And thank you, everybody else, for being here. And I just pray until we see each other again that you keep your heart open and you live your love loud.